This episode of the podcast is sponsored by my book, We Stand on the Shoulders of Titans, Amnesia.
Hello and welcome to the podcast where I'm joined by Dominic. How are you doing today, guys?
Not bad, not bad. I'm trying to have a chill weekend, except I'm stuck working, so, you know,
Live in it.
life.
Always the case. Life catches up with things and you don't get time to do things. Yep, definitely. How about yourself, Dominic?
I mean, it's been a long week, an interesting week. I just want things to continue like this. How about you, Dave?
Yeah, not too bad. Been watching some films and things like that, and kind of that's where I wanted to take the podcast this time round, was to talk about movies and the state of the decline of movies. You seem to watch movies now, and you never seem to get good quality movies like before. Movies like Pulp Fiction or The Shining, or just good movies all around. What do you think yourself?
I
Pulp
mean,
Fiction
like
is a
most.
very...
Go on,
Go
you go
on.
first.
No, go on.
I was going to say, well, I mean, it is blatantly obvious, like, a lot of modern movies are, well, shit at this point. Because I think for two reasons. Either because there isn't enough courage to actually try and make something like, how would you say, not memorable, but emotional. I'd say, something that can grip you emotionally. Whether it's just simple as fun. It's either that or there are a bunch of activists in there who put their message over over the quality of the actual film, and it suffers both ways because it just becomes a soulless piece of crap then, basically.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think some movies now are pushing agendas, that maybe it's just the case of pushing an agenda, not for quality, but just because of the point of pushing an agenda, to
Yeah.
try and
Well,
get
a big one, a big one's pushing
achieve.
the girl boss trope. It's like the whole
Yeah.
women are better than men, but it makes very very unlikable characters because it's like you wouldn't like a male character who does some of the stuff that these girl bosses do, but they are lauded by the narrative of the film or TV show or whatever, and a lot of people just turn around and go like, that person's fucking awful. I don't want anything to do with them.
Mhm. Yeah, and I mean, it seems to be your big franchises that seem to do it a lot. Like even taking like Disney for an example, they put a lot of money into movies, and some of these movies are coming out. The latest that I can think of, Snow White, is coming out, and then it's failing. Within the
Yeah.
first few weeks of the box office. And it's because there's just no quality there. And some of these people, some of the actors who are in these movies are getting their careers ruined because there's just no qualities in this
To
film.
be, to be
So
fair,
is it down to the actor or is it down to the film narrative? Is a question that I would
a
pose.
bit of both. Some of it would be down to the actor, 'cause like Snow White, Rachel Zegler. She seems to be a very, very nasty person. So yeah, her career, she's completely wasted her career now because I don't think anyone wants to go near her after not just how bad Snow White was, but just how bad of a person she is. I mean, you saw all the stuff like that, all the stuff that she did on social media, basically attacking all the fans. So
Mm,
yeah, she's mostly done in her own career there. You get some who I think just get unlucky and they never shake. They never shake past shake off the role that got them started. I mean, a good example again, another Disney one would be Daisy Ridley
yeah.
from the sequel trilogy. Now, as far as I'm aware, she's not an activist. I don't think so. She just quietly gets on with things. But she's barely been in anything since the sequel trilogy because she's only known as Rey, and
Mm,
Rey wasn't a very popular character overall, and
Yeah, it's a very forced character.
and she doesn't seem to have any range beyond doing that. So she can't establish herself outside of just being Rey. So I think her career stalled because of that as well. And there's many other examples of doing that if you look through the history of actors and actresses.
Yeah.
So there's different reasons. The only difference I would say is whether it's deserved or not. I'd say for Daisy Ridley, it's probably not deserved. But for Rachel
Yeah.
Ziegler, oh, it's definitely deserved. She brought that on herself.
Yeah. Sometimes, but like for me, in my opinion, you need to look beyond the actor or actress, and actually look to see what the film for what it actually is. I'm taking as an example Jim Carrey. He has quite a controversial character, in some respects. He's done some controversial things, but yeah, he's
Why would
quality
you
in
say it's
movies.
controversial though?
Well, just some of the things that you hear about him. For example, he's been accused of making signs for the Illuminati and things like that. So
That
that's
is
why I'm saying
such
controversial.
a
And I've
reframe.
got no
Yeah,
evidence.
that's. I
You've
mean,
got no evidence to base that on, but it's the things you
uh,
hear. And with today's cancel culture, sometimes people only need to hear things before
But that,
they'll.
that has nothing to do with
I'd
his
say
character and his movies, right?
yeah, I'd say at most, I mean, fairly recently, he seems to have taken a very conservative bent and has been more openly conservative, which in Hollywood is a risk because
Mm,
it's because they hate conservative culture there. But that's like Dominic was saying, that's got nothing to do with an actual character that he's played. You're
No,
talking, you're talking about
that's my point exactly. It's the person is getting nothing to do with the character they're playing. So what I'm asking is separating the art from the artist kind of thing. If the person does do something bad in real life or is perceived bad in real life, then can you separate the art from the artist?
Well,
You
you
know?
can do. There's been many examples of that. I mean, you got like Bill Murray, who is beloved in pretty much any film that he's in, but he's
Mm,
notoriously known as being very, very hard to work with and a bit of a diva on set. But
mm,
he keeps on getting the roles because he's got the acting chops to do it. You've got
yeah.
other people. You've got other people as well who like more controversial, like Kevin Spacey. We all know what happened with him. But
Yeah.
people still watch House of Cards and say it's better when he was in it, or films like Seven or The Usual Suspects, because they're really good films. And by watching it, you're not supporting what he's done or anything like that. Who was the director, the one who was done for pedophilia? I can't remember his name, but people
It's
Harvey
the
Weinstein?
Nickelodeon one? It's a Nickelodeon,
no
right?
no I
Harvey
can't remember his.
Weinstein?
No,
Is
no,
it
not
not?
Harvey Weinstein, because that's the complete opposite of what we're talking about. Um, I can't remember his
Yeah, it's
name, but
television, yeah.
people still watches films, even though he's been convicted as a paedophile. I think he's French.
I have
I'll
no
look it up later, but I cannot remember his name right now. It's completely blanking. But
idea.
yeah, stuff like that. I mean, Harvey Weinstein. Well, I mean, his career's gone. He's still in prison. It's like he's he got his just desserts. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could say people still watch stuff that's produced by Harvey Weinstein, but um, like older films and stuff. But no one supports what he's done. So there is a lot of separating the art from the artist. I think it's
Mm,
when going back to Rachel Ziegler, it's when you make it impossible to separate the art from the artist
Yeah.
yeah.
that you run into this kind of problem.
Yeah. I mean, we see it, but across industries, I think, in my opinion, again, we've talked about it in music, we've talked about it in video games. Have you got anything to add to that, Dominic?
Well, the issue is just more like what is it that you want, not just your children to see, but also what message do you want to spread across your civilization, right? Like China
Mm,
and the Middle East have some very strict rules on the type of Western movies they let into their country for very good reasons, right?
right.
And like one of the key things is like respecting the culture. Like if you're going to insult another person's culture, like an artist would say, "Oh, this is just freedom of speech." I think that's completely ridiculous. Like if
They'll say
you're
what?
like it's freedom of speech with freedom of expression,
Oh,
right? Like
Yeah.
Like, for example, with the Cleopatra being black, like it's this type of thing. Like, you're not respecting the culture. You're clearly not even blackwashing. You're just insulting, and that's when you
Well,
see responses, right?
I mean, it's funny that you say freedom of speech though, because it's like, well, they can say it, but on the flip side, it's like it's up to China or Egypt in the case of Cleopatra, to say, well, we're not going to host it. Because that's not an infraction of freedom of speech. It's like,
Yeah.
no, if we stop you from making the film, that's an infraction of freedom of speech. But we have no obligation to show it, which
Yeah.
is fair enough.
Well, then you get into obviously banned movies in certain countries where, I'll take maybe the Human Centipede as an example. In some countries, that's banned because it's seen as utterly grotesque and whatever. But there's some countries that let it in because they don't see it as that bad.
I
Essentially,
mean, I've never watched it. I've seen clips of it, and I've heard enough about it. It's like, I know I don't want to watch it. It does. The whole thing just sounds like, it's like it was just like, the way you get like what is it, like torture porn films like Saw and all that, where they're all goes. I've got no intention of seeing those. Although I've been told the Saw films tend to be quite good, but I've got no interest in that kind of thing.
Compared to some stuff, I think they're timid compared
But
to
yeah,
some
but like,
things.
things like Human Centipede, where it's just like it's kind of like just shock horror, just designed to be gross. It's like, I'm all for people being able to go and see it. I don't think it should be banned, but I mean, I'd be like, nah,
I disagree.
What?
The Human Centipede was made in my country, and if it was up to me, I would have never even allowed this movie to be made.
Why would
Yeah,
that
well, let's be honest though, Dominic. You do have a more authoritarian bent than I do.
That is true, but it's more like, what message are you trying to spread? Like, this movie, okay, nobody's watching it, but more like, why would you even want this type of media to come from your country? Like, again, this comes from my country, right?
I would just say it's the shock factor, like what Mike said. Sometimes
I was going to say,
yeah,
that one, that was just.
whole...
That was just let's make something as disgusting and schlocky as possible, and just get people's reaction. Because I remember, well, for a start, that kind of thing can work. When it comes to getting sales, because some people just do it just for money as well. Because I remember when Dead Space 2 was coming out, you had the Shocked Mothers advert that came out for it. So completely, obviously it was completely fake, or at least I think it was fake. But they were showing clips of the first Dead Space to various mothers. And getting their reactions to it, and they're all like, "Oh God, this is horrible!" It's like, this should not be. Yeah, it's like, and the whole thing was like, "Your mum doesn't want you to play Dead Space 2," and it was like, one of the best-selling games at the time when it came out.
It goes back to that whole thing. Nothing sells better than a controversial,
I mean, it
you're saying this, but the Human Centipede bombed, Dave.
Yeah, okay. The Human Centipede.
I was doing the Dead Space one. Yeah, I was doing the Dead Space one as an example of it working. But
there's good media and there's bad media. I'm basically making the argument is like, you need to draw a line.
Yeah.
Like, what comes out of your country is kind of like what reflects on your country. And if this is the kind of nonsense that comes out of my country, I also start looking at other things.
Well, not necessarily, because it's not a country is not a monolith. It's like, I mean, look at
It is, though. Like, what you represent is kind of like, for example, with California, we can kind of tell the type of culture that is in California based on the movies that are being come out of Hollywood, right? Like, it shows a representation of what you think is acceptable coming out of your country.
But you've also, that's because Hollywood's the power base for that kind of thing. You've got plenty of people, like, California is supposed to be mostly red, right? Not blue. Conservative and not liberal. But that's because Hollywood and the cities keep making the state flip blue in elections. It's not a full on representation. It's like this. You get films like in England, which is like, I get the Bond films, which slick chauvinistic spies. I'm not saying chauvinistic in a bad way there, so don't judge. But slick chauvinistic spy, quite competent, quite charismatic. Doesn't represent Britain as a whole, because you've got that would be more someone down south. But you get, if you're looking at the north end of the north-south divide, you get something. You get more like what is it, old Baz, up north, the up north meme, as they say, who's pretty much the exact opposite.
Though. This is not my argument, though.
What's your argument then?
My argument is like what comes out of a country is what it represents. So when people go to California, what are they expecting?
I think it depends on which part of California you go to. If you
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
to like if you go to like Beverly Hills, not Beverly Hills. If you go to LA or San Francisco, you're expecting very liberal, very liberal bourgeois culture. In the case of San Francisco, I'd expect literal shit in the streets because they've literally got a department to clean up the amount of shit that's
But
being
then
in the streets.
uh,
But then you
LA,
go somewhere around the countryside of California. It's very different, completely
but
Yeah,
then
different.
but people
this
generally
would
speaking don't look at it that way. People look at,
look
Yeah,
at
oh, this is
they
what it
don't. I think
represents.
they don't. I think they should. I mean,
Yeah,
the
but
way I
that's the
think films
media
should be
that
done.
comes out. That is how, look,
Yeah,
now we're getting to the point. Like, this is my entire argument. A movie should have like some reflections of what you find acceptable behavior within your own place.
yeah.
that's.
But
I
then
think
you've
that's
got
impossible though, because like I say, I don't think countries are a monolith.
sometimes
No,
you've got
but
isolated
what you're
areas
talking about
within.
is it happens in China, it happens in Japan, it happens in India. Why can the Middle East, but why can they do it and why can't we?
Well, hold on a minute.
Different cultures from what we have. I mean, China for a start is very authoritarian, so they can literally do a top down thing.
Hold
Japanese,
on
I
a
mean,
minute.
they are somewhat more liberal,
Sorry.
but they still have very they still have a lot of say in what gets put in over the country. You know, we as more Western countries have a more liberal bent. So up until recently, at least the countries weren't being mandated to do these kind of things or incentivized. They could just do whatever they wanted.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If we take a place, but if we're talking about places in movies, mentioned LA there is isolated places within LA that even bring out the dregs of society, like for example Skid Row. So there's places within places that maybe don't give the best example of how the overall place is. You know what I mean? So you can't really
Yeah, but that's
judge.
stereotyping, right? Like you're talking about judging everything. Nobody cares about judging. You're going to be stereotyped based on your behavior.
Hmm.
That
Yeah, no,
is how
that's
you are
fair. I mean,
represented.
yeah, I mean stereotypes exist for a reason, but
Yeah.
again, it's like I don't. I mean, if it comes down to like who would have the say in what film's going to come out of your country, for example.
Well, I would more be inclined to look at things like, for example, Studio Ghibli, right? This is a company that prides itself on quality, specifically the old way of making movies. And I'm not saying you should be doing stuff like that, but it's more the type of messages that come out of it. Like it doesn't mean you need like a very hardcore approach to like you can only do these type of things because there's parts of Japanese society that have very inappropriate content, right? But this is something that reflects and it gives it like a culture. It gives it like a beauty standard, and there are certain expectations, like especially when it comes to representing the Japanese countryside, which is where you actually show, okay, like there's this, but there's also that, which gives like a very natural view of what's actually going on. So the stereotype for Japanese, like I don't
But
know how you guys
but,
see it.
but that doesn't answer my question though, because it's like you're saying, well, the movies that come out should be, should portray countries in a certain way. So who gets to decide that though?
Yeah, and
Well, that's where
these
the
things
artists
take.
themselves have to come to the conclusion, right? Like if you're making an expression of art and like you're just going free for all, that's when you
Yeah,
get chaos. But when you actually have structure,
Mm.
so actual, like for example, think about blacksmiths, right? There's a certain guideline for how what a sword should look like or what like a plow should look like. It
yeah.
doesn't mean
But that
every single one of them is going to be the same, but
but
like there's at
that's
least some structure.
that's
But
apples and
structures.
oranges because if you do like with a blacksmith, you're doing it to make physical things.
Yeah,
When it comes to
A
art, a
movie is
lot of it.
physical as well, though.
Yeah,
yeah.
but
Once it's
when it comes to art and representations of things, it's a lot more abstract in that sense because it's like
but then
if I give you a block of wood, for
Yeah.
example, no, in fact, not a block of wood. If I just give you a block of steel, I told you it was a sword, would you believe me?
You would have to really sell it to me that.
Yeah, well, fair. But yeah, the whole point is if you're making a sword, for example. I mean, and this comes with anything that a blacksmith makes. There's certain forms you got to do to actually make that thing. You know,
Yeah.
it's tried and tested. When it comes to art, I mean, like just films, for example, many different genres of films, many different things to do, and even in the same genre, there's many different ways of getting that genre about. I mean, horror can be done, for example, in different ways, whether it's like shock horror, suspense, like fear of the unknown, or just jump scares. So there's very different ways of doing it. So I don't think it's fair to compare it to something that's much much less abstract than something like blacksmithing.
Well, movies, if you think about the type of movies that have been coming out for at least the past 150 years, I think that's about right. Yeah, it's stop motion movies, black and white, silent movies. Like there's a certain level of artistic expression that there is absolutely no problem with. Because like if you think about horror, you can go all the way and look at like there's now a new movie coming out basically insulting all of Christianity with the new horror movie about Jesus Christ, right? Like there needs to be
What's this? I've not heard of this.
really. There is a
No,
new
no.
horror movie specifically going about the life of Jesus, but then making it horror.
Okay. I don't see how you could do that. I mean, maybe going into like torture porn at the end, but I don't know. But I'd say for something like that. So my problem with that is because I mean, Christianity is one of those religions that you can just freely insult now with no problem. I
Now
would,
you can, yeah, now you
yeah,
can. That's the
I
big
would.
difference.
Yeah, and it's like, but you got other ones where you can't. If you look at Islam, any insult to Islam gets met with I was going to say appropriate force, but it's not appropriate. But you know what I mean, right? But you, I'd say it'd be better if you want to do a film that insults like a religion, have at it, but be able to do it equally. So if someone comes out with a religion that insults Christianity, then some Christian somewhere can go like, well, I don't like this. I'm going to do one about Buddhism or something like, or
Then
Islam.
you're just creating a fight. Now you're just fighting.
Well, what a lot of cultural stuff is cultural posturing, which can be fights. Like our culture's better than yours. It's like, I mean, culturally, the English tend to like the French, for example. There's
That
there's
is
a lot
true.
of historical and cultural context, but I mean, I remember. Did you guys ever watch QI?
Where did Dave go?
I think we lost Dave. He'll come back in a minute
QI.
though.
I
I mean,
don't really know what that is.
huh?
I don't know what QI is. That's what your question is.
No. So QI is it's a panel show. I think it might still be going actually, but it was a panel show that's gone for like 20 years. Had Stephen Fry at the start. Basically, it was QI stands for quite interesting. So you'd get points. Well, it's kind of like whose line is anyway, where the points don't really matter. But you get points for like knowing obscure facts or something that's quite interesting.
Right.
And one of them came. The panels were always panelists were always different people from usually British people, but you had them from other countries. And there was a comedian on there called Rich Hall who was from the American South, and I just remember. I'll try and find you a clip of it later, but I remember there was cultural posturing about. Welcome back, Dave. So there was some cultural posturing about how good food is, and how
Yeah.
American food is better than English food. And Stephen Fry, without missing a beat, turns around and goes, "This from the country that has spray on cheese." So it's like
But that's just good fun though.
yeah.
Like I just
But
think
I
you need
mean,
to draw a line. That's kind of like my argument, right? Like there needs to be a line drawn, like how far you're willing to go.
well, as long as it doesn't get to violence, I've got no problem with it. You can argue about cultural superiority all the time. As long as no one gets hurt over it. I mean, because a lot of it comes down to just disagreement anyway. And art can be used as a way to express that. Sometimes it can be
Look
just
at the
used to
film like
attack.
Blazing Saddles. Blazing Saddles does that, I think. You know what I mean? It highlights cultural differences in a sense of comedy, but would it be considered PC these days. You know.
Definitely not PC. I mean, there's a lot of people who say you should get rid of like clip out or even just ban Blazing Saddles because it doesn't fit, modern day cultural norms, which I find to be absolute full of crap. It's like it's there. You should leave it there, and it's a good film. But
Funny.
yeah, well, yeah, good. It's good and funny. Yeah, I mean, Spaceballs as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, you should these things should be allowed, even if it's something that's blatantly just an attack on, say, like Christianity or something. Since I'm religious, I don't particularly have a dog in that fight, but obviously I know Christians wouldn't like it. But as long as the Christians can then turn around and go like, oh well, here's our own thing, and we here's why we think your stuff's bad. Here's our retort to you. I've got no problem with them doing it. It's when people just suddenly start turning around and say, no, you can't do this. It's like you can't touch our sacred cow. It's like, no, we can insult your sacred cow.
Yeah,
Then you
definitely.
kind
And
of
I
get
think
to the point of you're not free from consequences, right? Because at some point there's going to be consequences, like for certain actions. That's kind of what you have with Muslims, right?
Well, yeah, that's what you have. I mean, like I said, as long as it doesn't get to violence, that's where my line is. So, I mean, you can sit around throwing insults at each other all day. I would. I don't have the problem where if a bunch of people don't like each other and they're just at each other's throats all the time, just shouting and screaming. As long as it doesn't go beyond that, and you could do that with film and film and other kind of art. It's fine. It's just an expression. It's not from, like you say, not from the consequences though. So if because you see there's a bunch of films coming out now where they keep on putting the message into things, they tend to be box office bombs. Like a lot of them, like the latest Marvel stuff or the just Disney stuff in general, tends to bomb. I think Disney haven't had a commercial success in probably like several years now at this point because, well, one, they're putting too much money into them, like inflated budgets, but they're being very divisive by insulting a good portion of the audience. I mean, with like Star Wars or Marvel, they tend to be boys brands, but they're doing the massive girl boss trope, like I said earlier, which alienates a good, like a lot of girls don't watch it anyway because they're not interested in it. The more not to sound sexist, but they're more into watching something like Barbie, like the Barbie movie, or something a bit, I guess you could say, softer than something like an action film. So the pandering to an audience that doesn't want to that generally tends not to watch it, but they're then alienating the actual core audience of mostly men who do want to watch this stuff, but then they insult them all by saying, oh well, you're all toxic and this is why the girl boss is better. So they bomb because no one wants to, because it turns out no one wants to watch it in the end, because he's got like, oh well, this film wasn't made for you. I go, well, fine, your terms are acceptable. I'll go watch something else. And then they wonder why. Then they wonder why the films fail. But that's what I'm saying. That goes back to the consequence of it. If the consequence is no one buys your art, well, that's an acceptable consequence. You put it out there. No one's stopping you from doing it. You just failed.
You've still got the individual part who are going to enjoy the art regardless. You know what I mean, of what it kind of tends to lean towards. And I think that's important to remember is everybody's views and opinions are different. You know what I mean? If it causes controversy, that's fair enough. But people are going to enjoy different mediums for different reasons. And sometimes I think for me, like movies give you a different perspective on some things, you know what I mean? And it's important sometimes to look at that message and look at that perspective.
It can do. I think one of the problems when it comes to modern stuff is they're so heavy-handed with it. If you look at like original Star Trek or The Next Generation, that would
It was subtle in a way.
Yeah, it will posit like complicated political themes or moral quandaries, but then it would give you the opportunity as the viewer to come to your own conclusions about it. When it comes to modern day stuff, it's very just like, no, they promote it in a very black and white way. This is good, this is bad. And it doesn't give you room for interpretation. And I think a lot of people just don't like being preached to in that way.
Yeah, yeah. I
Definitely.
think you've got to love movies that do that, you know what I mean, and pose the question to the audience, of what do you actually think of this, you know what I mean? They don't push it in your face black and white, as they say, they kind of give you the audience. Like Seven, I guess, is a great example of that, you know what I mean? Where kind of talking about Kevin Spacey, and at the end of the film, he was kind of given the actor, not Kevin Spacey himself, but the actor who played, who was it again? Was it Ben Affleck, or what was his name?
No idea.
Oh, Brad Pitt, you mean?
Brad Pitt. Yeah, thanks. I knew one of the two. They two look the same, by the way. But anyway, no, anyway, he's kind of got the choice at the end. Obviously, you know what I mean, to either kill
It's.
this
I mean,
person or
yeah.
not.
I
And
can
it's
see. I
kinda
can
it
see where you're
leaves it
coming
up to
from
you
there.
and the audience. You're thinking to yourself, "Would I do the same if I was in his position?"
Yeah,
Kinda
no, I
thing,
can see where you're coming from there. I mean, I think that's a good example of it because it's like, I mean, I think it's obvious that he's done the wrong thing there. I mean, obviously he shouldn't have killed him. He should have brought him in for to face justice because I can't remember the Kevin Spacey's character's name, but um, I think he's done the wrong thing there, and he's actually played into Kevin Spacey's hands because, well, he fits into the whole wrath theme that he was, because he's doing the seven deadly sins. Um,
Mhm.
but it's very very sympathetic about why he's done that because
Yeah.
Kevin Spacey just killed his wife and presented his head in a box. It's like,
Mhm.
excuse me, a lot of people would act in a similar way, just be completely blinded by wrath. So
Yeah.
you can see why he's done it, even if you take a step back and look at it logically. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, he should have done this instead. But in the moment, would you be able to look at it logically like that and go, like,
Yeah.
or would you just descend into pure wrath at the time? It's like
Exactly, and I mean,
a lot of people like me would say, yeah, I think I'd like to be able to step back and not shoot him in the head. But
yeah.
when the moment comes, would I? It's
Well,
a
again, it's thinking about the consequences. What consequences is that going to? Yeah, okay, fair enough. You could say you're being rightful and rapturous or whatever.
well, I mean,
You're in the right position, but at the end of the day, there's still going to be consequences if you do
yeah, I mean,
something to
at
that
the
other
end of it,
person.
at the very least, Brad Pitt's going to lose his job.
Yeah,
He's not going to be allowed to do it because he's just unjustly killed it. He might very well go to prison for murder.
yeah,
He might get off with extenuating circumstances, given what happened. But yeah, his life's not going to be the same regardless.
yeah, yeah. So I think that's, in terms of critical thinking, the audience has to be able to do that for themselves as well. And I think
Well,
sometimes that's why film is a good medium for that, because it can allow
well,
the,
you have
the
to
person to
allow
think
the
for themselves.
audience to do it for a start, though.
Yeah, yeah.
I
But
mean,
we tend to,
you can't treat them like idiots, which I
yeah,
think a lot of modern stuff starts to do now. It's like, yeah, we
yeah,
don't trust you to think for yourself, so we're going to spell everything out for you.
yeah. Well, this is exactly what Dominic has said before as well. Do you agree, Dominic? Like, that's the whole point. That we're losing critical thinking as a civilization now.
I mean, that's just Orwell, right? Like Orwellian thoughts. Like when you think about like message being spread in movies, agendas being pushed in movies, blackwashing, whitewashing, doesn't matter what you call it. Like I just think
Would,
it's completely ridiculous.
here's one. Would if you race swap someone to Asian, would that be yellow washing?
I have no idea. I don't even want to touch that.
We'll
I'm being
not touch
silly,
that. We'll
obviously.
not go there, but yeah, I know what you mean. It's one of those ones, But
I'm just
yeah,
thinking of the yellow scare, back when people thought China was gonna, or Japan was gonna take over the world, back in the 70s and 80s. So it was,
Mm,
I believe it was called the yellow scare. So that's where I'm just getting it from.
yeah, it's one of those
could
ones.
be. I'm
You
not
you
that old.
mentioned Dominic. You mentioned
Well,
Orwell,
neither am
and
I.
sorry,
Cheeky
What do
sod.
you say?
I remember you saying about Orwell just there, and me and you had a conversation at one point off air about Orwell and the the choices in films. You showed me a clip of a film, and it was the teacher who was giving an example. What was that about again?
It's about like the modern thought of like spreading an agenda, like not necessarily about movies though. Like it's more the general consensus around like what's actually being spread in your culture. The message was basically you're teaching men to become more feminine, you're teaching women to become whores, you're teaching men to normalize the objectifying of women, you're teaching women to pursue materialism. Like that's a movie from like 2011. It was 14 years ago, and it's only gotten worse since then. So that was
Yeah.
already a message being spread then, and this is kind of like the thing with Orwell. Like he kind of predicted all of these type of things would happen and warned against it, and everyone's like, you know what? It's easier to just be addicted to dopamine, so let's just do that instead. I
Well,
think about
Yeah.
the sexual revolution.
yeah, with that, it's also about the top-down application of culture, because obviously all culture in 1984 is done through ingsoc. Um,
No, even before that, like the sexual revolution wasn't just top down. Like it's a lot of influence from just normal people as well.
no, I was talking about 1984 specifically. I mean, you've
Oh, the
got, I
movies.
mean, yeah, I'm talking, and if you're talking about things like the sexual revolution, I mean, I think that was a double-edged sword. Some good stuff came about it, but also a lot of problems came with it as well. Like you say, it's gone like I mean, there was a lot of sexual repression going on before the sexual revolution came about, which I think was, at least in my opinion, using my modern day sensibilities, was a bit much. But with the sexual revolution, people were a bit more free to express themselves. There was a lot less prejudice against people who wanted to explore sexually, for example. But with that, I think we've gone way too far now. It's gone from one extreme to the other. So, like I say, it's now everyone just gets the whore about, which it has caused a lot more problems for people who want to just form an intimate relationship with someone, start a family, that kind of thing. It's gotten in the way of stuff like that. So I think we jumped from one extreme to the other there.
I
Well,
think,
it's not
but the
just that,
inter
right? Because you're talking about the sexual revolution. Obviously, it's caused a lot of problems. But the biggest thing is you create an ideology that has no birth rates. You have no birth rates, your entire society collapses no matter what your ideology is. Like if you have no children, it's GG, it's done.
Yeah. So you're are you talking specifically about feminism there or something?
No, I'm talking about the sexual revolution. Like feminism, sure, we could talk about that as well. But when you talk about sexual revolution, like it was both sides, both genders, like we're both equally guilty in this.
I've never really seen it as an ideology in and of itself, though. To be fair, I
To
mean,
completely liberate, like the hippie movement, doing sex and
well,
drugs, like with music, we talk about that. Like rock and roll was
is
heavily
well,
promoting
wouldn't
this.
that wouldn't you say that? Wouldn't you say that was born out of like the liberalism movements or libertarian movements or something like that, as
Yeah,
opposed
sure, but even
I
then, there needs
because
to be a limit. That's kind of like the discussion of today. Like, where do you draw the line? Because you
oh yeah,
normalized it,
yeah.
and now we are paying extreme prices for that normalization.
um I would say, I mean, I would say it started off as a good thing, and where it went originally was a good thing. Getting rid of a lot of sexual
So the
repression and
tolerance
allow.
paradox, you know that paradox,
Yeah,
tolerance paradox,
yeah.
that
I
kind
know,
of
I know
thing.
that. Yeah, I like I said, I think it's gone too far. I mean, obviously, I think we're going to draw lines in different places here, Dominic. But um, I think we both agree that it went too far,
I
and
mean,
it needs to be put, because I think there can be for something like this, there can be a happy medium somewhere. Not to draw on the golden mean fallacy, obviously, but I think when it comes
yeah.
to like the sexual revolution, there's a happy medium somewhere. But you've got the two extremes though. Like one is like complete sexual repression, and the other one is complete sexual liberation. And when you get like with most things, when you get to an extreme on either side, bad things happen. So I think I think the bad stuff that we've gotten to is because we've let it go too far in the other direction. I think. So I
Mhm.
think we could pull it back a bit without saying, people can still be sexually free to a point, but we do need to draw boundaries and limits for people.
Or let's get the science involved in, right? Like I should saying to a point. To what
Okay.
point? Like where do you draw a line? Because if you have more than five partners, we already know, scientifically speaking, the brain already gets affected in like pair bonding, right? Like it's already struggling with understanding how a relationship works. The good side, because I will agree with you there, the good side is that you do actually have this experience in what do you actually want. But if you're going to do this like more than 5 times, we already know there's consequences, and those consequences are not small. Now you're basically, I don't really say you're damaged goods, but you're making it very difficult for someone. Doesn't matter which gender, by the way. Like I'm talking completely gender. It doesn't matter the gender because men are just as bad as women in this.
Oh yeah,
Um,
no, I agree. There are men whores out there as well.
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. But
Yeah.
the issue is like actual like relationship, like the foundation of a nation lies upon the family. If you don't have children, that means you start importing people from other countries. That's exactly what we're doing right now because we created an ideology that's no
Yeah.
birthrights.
Yeah.
And that creates even more issues because now you need to think about, okay, how do we make them integrate? Well, we decide to not make them integrate, and now there's an even more big issue. But it all started with the family. Like we've declared all-out war on the family for 230 years now, and it's getting worse and worse and worse every single decade. And we're trying to solve that with
230
mass
years?
immigration. Yeah, it started with the French Revolution. That's when they first started
Oh, right.
deciding
Okay. Right.
like family was like you're not mother and father anymore, you're parent one and parent two. Like it's already an attack on the
Yeah.
language itself within the
Well,
family, right?
yeah, and you got like birth in person instead of pregnant woman, something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like this type of thing comes from like the French Revolution, and that just keeps building up, and like it's the normalization in movies as well. Like you're talking about, because I do think because it's the forbidden fruit syndrome, right? Like, because this is kind of like where I fully agree with you. If you give them the illusion of the forbidden fruit, then people are going to start trying to pursue that forbidden fruit, which is then like sexual liberation, right? So there needs to be some controlled doses of it. But then the question becomes, where is that line? Because I personally don't know where that line is. I'm just going to be honest there, because I don't. My philosophy is not really interested in the sexual part of society. I'm more interested in the functioning side of society, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those things. You need some culturally enforced boundaries. So, people getting shamed for being massive, sluts. I mean, having a couple of
They
partners.
should.
I
Like
mean,
that shame
yeah,
should remain, right?
yeah. I mean, having a few partners and experiment a bit when you're younger. I've got no problem with that. But then you get the ones who you take it to the extreme, where you get like people who have like 50 or so partners that they're barely in the 20s, or you get women who brag about having a ton of abortions,
Yeah.
or men who brag about having a ton of like kids who they don't provide for, that kind of thing. So
Hmm.
taking that to an extreme like that, yeah, that kind of stuff should be socially ostracized. I
Well,
don't
you also
think
get
I
swingers as well. Swingers,
um
for one part.
I think that's a bit more of a grey one. I mean, personally, I wouldn't do it, but I mean, if it's between, here's the thing: it's like if it's between consenting adults, it's
Yeah.
one thing. I mean, again, even if it comes to like the people being massive whores, it's like as long as it's between consenting adults, I mean, I think they can do it. They should. I mean, maybe getting shamed for it culturally, sure. I mean, if you want to shame swingers, like, well, you guys are weird or something like that, fair enough. If it comes to legal consequences, though, I think that's where I draw the line. There shouldn't be anything more than cultural enforcements.
I
Yeah.
think
That
that's
does
actually a good
that
line to draw. I think that's a good
yeah,
line to draw.
yeah, because I mean, again, going back to what we were saying, because we've gone a bit off topic here. Going back
Yeah.
to what we're saying with films, I don't think, because I actually disagree with what the Chinese government does and says, "Oh well, you can't show such and such a thing here." It's like I don't think the government should have a say in that. Like the people could say, like the Chinese people could say, "Well, we don't like you insulting our
The
country."
government should
So
represent the people, right?
not I don't think it does in China's case.
Yeah, okay, but
And I don't think it does in our cases, like in the case of in the case of England. It doesn't represent, well, Britain. It doesn't represent the British people. It represents a more globalist agenda, which is what most British people, I think the majority of the British people, reject. So the government doesn't represent them, which is why I think it should be done more culturally and say, well, and that should be shown through the box office, where it's like, well, the films are bombing because people just aren't watching it.
Mm.
that's one way
Yeah.
to do it. But then you kind of get like
Same with
to another
games as well.
problem because you get to another problem now. Like this stems from like a philosophical work that I've been working on for a while now as well, with like some Catholic bishops, and I spoke about this. It's the idea of Like, this comes from Christianity, but let's just use it as a philosophical lesson.
Okay.
The story of Adam and Eve, where they eat from the forbidden fruit. So let's just paraphrase the forbidden fruit into, let's say you're indulging in like adult content, right? Just to normalize it. And the reaction then from Adam to God was the woman that you gave to me. So he's blaming the woman, he's blaming God, are the reason I ate from the forbidden fruit. There is zero accountability, and in the current state of our society, and it's also one of the biggest reasons why societies keep collapsing. Everyone is like, no, we should be doing accountability, and we should be blaming other people. We should be blaming them, the system, the politicians. We should always be
Yeah.
blaming something else, never ourselves.
People
That is like a
deflect,
huge,
essentially.
exactly. So you're
Well,
like
yeah.
trying to create cultural rules, which I agree with. But the issue then is these people don't really want to antagonize each other, right? They don't really want to like go against like with the sexual revolution. There was a lot of people that were trying to kind of maintain it, but it just gets out of control because of herd mentality, right? And that's kind of like, do we now need the government to step in and just say that this sexual revolution, we've had the science now, but it's horrible for society? Or do you just be like, well, people should be figuring out themselves, and then all the consequences we've seen for the past 5 decades?
It's a bit of a tricky one, that, because I think
Yeah,
you might be. I mean, I don't think there's a perfect solution here. So I think you might be saying the make it perfect the enemy of the good there.
yeah,
Because I don't think you're going to get a one size fits all solution. I'm
that is true.
very, very wary about having the government coming in and doing this kind of stuff, because that's a lot of centralized power. It like government should only be done in very specific situations, and just for that, because one of the problems is you bring the government in, it will expand its control over. It'll use that pretext for other things. I mean, for example. You've got the Stop Killing Games movement, which I am a part of. That's to stop
I know
companies
what it
from.
is.
Okay, well, for anyone who doesn't know, basically, it's to stop people from not people, organizations from killing off a game because they no longer support the servers for it. So things like the main impetus was like one of the Need for Speed games. But you got games like The Division, World of Warcraft, a lot of MMOs.
Wasn't it Cars? It wasn't Need for Speed. It was Cars, the Ubisoft game.
The Crew, yeah, not
Yeah, the
Need for
Crew.
Speed,
That's
yeah,
the
yeah.
one.
No, I
Yeah,
got you
yeah,
mixed up, yeah. So yeah, it was The Crew.
yeah.
But those are games which are online only. But specifically in the Crew's case, it could be played single play. It didn't need an online component. But the people who bought the game were unable to play it even in single player mode because Ubisoft shut down the servers for it. And you've got games like World of Warcraft, which are online only. But when Warcraft or Final Fantasy 14 or any of these other games stop being supported by the developers, well, no one's going to be able to play them anymore. Now, the whole point of the Stop Killing Games movement is to basically force developers to provide a version of the game that can be played offline in some state, as close to complete as possible, because that's what the people have paid for. They've paid for these games to play. Now, the thing is, you can only do that through legislation. You can't culturally enforce that. So that is something for the government to do. Now, I recognize that could potentially be a double-edged sword, though, because like the government could try and push that towards other things to try and legislate other things that go way beyond their remit. But in something like this, you've kind of got to. I think it's a necessary evil. You've got to do it because only the government can force businesses to basically stop what I consider ripping off customers. Because it's like, I watched a parliamentary debate over because the signatures for the British Parliament reached the threshold, which means that Parliament there's got to be a committee and a parliamentary debate about it. And one of the things people brought up was like, well, if you bought a Hoover, and then suddenly that version of Hoover stuff gets stops getting supported because the Hoover company's now got a new brand that they want to sell. So suddenly your Hoover's just shut down; it doesn't work anymore.
Yeah.
You'd be up in arms about it. It's like, well, no, hang on, the Hoover still works perfectly. It might be a few years old, but I can still, clean the house with it. Why can't I suddenly use it just because the developer the Hoover manufacturer no longer supports it? That was
Just
that.
to
that
just to go on,
oh,
sorry,
go on.
just to interject and to go a wee bit left field here, but do you not think that's maybe why piracy is becoming a bit more relevant nowadays and a bit more
Oh,
rife
definitely. Yeah,
now?
definitely. It's like Gabe Newell, praise be his name, says piracy is a service issue. Piracy
Yeah,
always comes down to a service issue. You're not providing a good enough service that people are willing to pay for it, so they will go sail the high seas for it. And I think he's absolutely right. A lot of people will go to Steam and buy the Steam Deck, or they did their new Steam hardware announcements. Like with the I forgot what it's called, but the Steam box and all that. A lot of people are saying they're going to buy it because it sounds like it's giving you a really good service for what you're paying
yeah,
for, and people will be willing to buy it because because Steam will give it the support that they, that is goes beyond the bare minimum.
yeah,
But then you get other companies which don't do that. So a lot of people try and find ways around like DRM. So they'll go pirate it because a lot of people don't like DRM, which is like again going back to Stop Killing Games, forcing an always online component in a single player game. So people will try and find ways around that, and it's not because the game is bad. People want the product; they just don't want the baggage that comes with it.
yeah. And I think that's also relevant to films as well. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So for Netflix and stuff like that, or all these providers now who are providing a service where you can stream these movies, people, are sick of paying for like many different services, so they're starting to pirate these things, even
yeah.
though if the movie's bad or good or bad, you know what I mean, they're still pirating it because
When
you,
it
you know
when it was just Netflix, everybody had a Netflix account.
yeah, and piracy went down
Or they were like
probably.
me, and just mooched off the family's Netflix accounts. But yeah, everyone did it, and because a lot of companies didn't do it because they were all like, "Oh, streaming's not going to be the next big thing. No one's going to do it." Clearly, they were wrong, and they all started jumping on the bandwagon afterwards. But now, because
Yeah,
almost every production company has some kind of streaming service, it's not just people are getting sick of it. People can't afford it either. So
yeah,
a lot of people get like little Fire Sticks or something like that, so they can go watch Apple stuff or Amazon Prime stuff or Netflix
yeah,
stuff because they just can't afford to get it all. So again, that comes down to being a service issue.
yeah,
It used to be a fairly decent model, I think, where everyone's having a Netflix account, but then Netflix would have to buy the rights to all of these shows and things that were on there.
mhm,
So everyone would get a bit of money out of it. But now, since everyone's got a streaming service, loads of them are going under because people just can't afford to pay for them all. So instead of like Netflix was getting a share of the pie, and then all of these other production companies were getting a share of the pie because they were selling the rights to Netflix to be able to stream it. Now nobody's getting anything because people are splitting. So there's so many different pies that people don't know which one to get anymore, and
yeah.
they're all smaller pies.
Do you think this maybe something that's on my head now? Like you might not know about this, Dominic, but we had a company here in Britain called Blockbuster, and
Oh no,
Netflix was
that was worldwide. That was an American
yeah.
thing.
Well, yeah, right.
American
Fair
company.
enough. Netflix was the reason why Blockbuster kind of shut down, is because everybody was starting to go to streaming films.
Well, it
But do
was
you
it
think
was
we'll?
partly that, but also as
Yeah,
well because Blockbuster refused to adapt.
yeah,
They
absolutely.
kept themselves in the video and DVD, the tape and DVD
Yeah.
renting format.
So
When if they went in a more digital direction, they probably could have blown Netflix out of the water. But
yeah,
they didn't think it was the next big thing and just scoffed at it, so they paid the price.
definitely. Do you think we'll see a return of something like Blockbuster to the streets? You know what I mean? Now that
No,
services are becoming a
No.
bit no.
no, I think you're gonna have an increased demand for a physical market because of increased censorship. Because
Mhm.
you
Definitely,
get you
yeah.
get you get digital films and shows getting censored, so like scenes will be rewritten or cut out because of my sensibilities. um So you get a lot of people now saying, "Oh well, make sure you buy physical because you can't change something that's already been printed or burned
Yeah,
onto a disc."
yeah,
So you're going to get an increase. You're not going to eliminate the demand for physical content. Plus, you've got collectors as well. Some people just like to have the box and stuff. So
yeah,
you're going to have a demand for that, but it's never going to hit. It's never going to hit the demand and the convenience of streaming. But again, that comes with its own problems of censorship and the like. So it's like it's basically pick your poison. How are you going to choose to do it? I think it's a mix of the two. If you got something, if you're sensitive to censorship, then focus more on getting physical copies of things
yeah,
wherever possible. But if you're just purely for the convenience, just go get Netflix or something like that.
yeah.
I mean, I think what's going to happen, give it another 10 years or so, you're probably going to have a lot of these streaming companies collapse into a few big ones. So I think it's going to play anything like Paramount, Disney, and Netflix. Just
Yeah.
and everything else is going to fold into those.
If you
Just
think
because
Netflix will stay afloat,
I think it will. I mean, I think actually
I think it's
Disney is more likely to go under than Netflix is.
yeah.
hmm.
They're
Because
offering good
I
websites
think
now.
because Disney's got having its own massive failures. In fact, there's a comparison here. You've got uh, game launching services. So you got like UPlay and the EA store and all that, and
Yep,
Epic.
Luna.
Yeah,
Luna's an example as well. Yep.
yeah, that too. So, but a lot of people hate those kind of things, and they prefer to just go into Steam or GOG. Sometimes Epic as well. So those are kind of like the big three. But
Yeah.
Ubisoft and EA and all that have kind of just shut down or quietly shutting down their launching platforms because nobody wants to use them.
Yeah. I find
It's
it
like
as kind of
you
funny
might
because
you do get the odd exception like an MMO launching service, but for the most
yeah.
part, most people would just go onto Steam for it.
It's funny because Epic Games, as an example there, they throw games at, their users every week, a free game that's maybe worth 15, 20 quid. And yeah,
But 15,
Steam
20, more
is,
like 2 cents, dude. Those games are
Yeah,
not
well,
worth anything.
yeah. No,
some of
I
them,
mean
some of them are worth for good money, some of them are actually good games.
that's the
But
only reason that they're able to still do
yeah,
is still keep a presence because they've got the Fortnite money to be able to afford to do that.
yeah,
If like GOG, I mean, I think maybe Steam could potentially get away with it as well. But
I do
they do a
think,
lot with they do a lot of sales and stuff. But I think if GOG or another new online store startup started to try and do that, unless they had the money for that to be able to pull off things like year-long exclusives and the like, they would they'd either only carve out a tiny niche market for themselves, or if they were trying to compete with the big ones, they'd go under immediately.
yeah. But even at that, Epic doing that, and even GOG on occasion does that through Amazon Prime. Steam still remains the most relevant service to gaming. You know what I mean? And could you see something within the film industry like that? I mean, look at the Wayans brothers for comedy. Essentially, do you think there'll
Um,
be divides within the film industry for
I
certain
don't
types
think
of films?
I I'm not sure it would work within the film industry the same way. I mean, you're not going to be able to separate the industry into genres. I mean,
Mm,
you get little stables like the Wayans are known for doing the Wayne family is known for doing mostly comedy. I mean, they did like the My Wife and Kids show, which I really enjoyed
yep,
when I was younger, and
that was
they did
great. Yeah,
the scary movie franchise, or at least they
yep.
started it. So you
White
get
chicks.
you get little stables like that of like studios which might be known more for doing comedy, but it comes down to you're talking like the big producers like Warner Brothers, Disney. Is it Paramount? Is Paramount still
Paramount,
going?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Universal
So
I,
Studios.
I,
Paramount as well. So you got, but they're like they are. You could call them the equivalents of like Steam or GOG or something like that. I mean, it's not. It's again. It's kind of apples to oranges because it's different
but
products. But
the
it
thing
come.
is, sorry, we are seeing that now because you look at all these streaming services. Paramount's got their own streaming service. Disney's got their own streaming services. HBO has got
Yeah,
their
but
own streaming
it's
services.
it's
So they
going
start to
to
publish their own material on their platform and exclusively to get you to pay for that
Yeah, but
content.
again, that runs into the problem that we had before, where there's just too many of them. They're gonna end up folding into each other, and you're gonna end up with a few. It's like it's like with you've seen Demolition Man, haven't you?
Yeah.
Well, it's like everything's Taco Bell because you had the franchise wars and the backstory, didn't you? So like you can only go to Taco Bell because it's the only one left because they won. You're gonna have, I mean, it's not gonna go to like a kinetic war, but you're gonna see a lot of these streaming services go under because they're gonna cost too much for these companies to run with little to no profits
Yeah.
because
Well, they're all going down the line of own nothing and be happy. Essentially,
no,
as
that's a
again.
completely different thing. That's for people, not for companies. This is just there's too many hands in the pie, and there's only so much to go around. People only have so much time and money to spend, and with all of these, you've spread people so thin they can't. There's no one who can. There's going to be no company that can get everybody to unless the rich like the Bruce Wayne like with no day job, you know. So yeah, they're not going. They're not. Besides a couple of people who can who could maybe subscribe to everything and have the time to watch everything. You're not gonna get enough people to offset the cost of running those servers and for potentially making new content for it. So a lot of them are going to go under, and you're going to end up going back to a similar model where it's like you're going to license your stuff to something like Netflix or Amazon or something like that, which will be so you'll get some profit from doing that, but it's only going to get down to a few services that can offer this.
Yeah, but the thing is,
And
as
that's why
well with it,
Steam is at the top of the game still because they offer a good service.
the thing is that with it being on a service and going back to the argument of physical and digital copies, the service can pull that copy at any point if they run out of a license agreement. Then that, looking at PT as an example, that get pulled from Sony because of the
That
licensing agreement and
that's
Konami.
that's slightly different though. That's not the service puller. That wasn't Sony puller. Let's say
Yeah.
well let's use Demolition Man for example. So that's on. I imagine it's on Netflix because I don't have a Netflix account. But I like let's just say it's on Netflix for the sake of the argument. If if the owners of the license for the film, the right to the film, decide they don't want to do it to Netflix anymore, well, that's what them. That's not Netflix's fault. Yeah, if Netflix decide that they don't want to renew the contract again,
Yeah.
then that'd be Netflix. It depends on who. It depends on who's
Yeah.
doing what.
But if you've got a physical copy, they can't do that. They can't come in at your house and go, "I'm pulling your physical copy because I don't agree with you having this
Because
anymore."
you own it. Because
Yeah.
Ubisoft, like going back to Stop Killing Games, Ubisoft have actually tried to do that and say when we pull service for a game, you've got to physically destroy your discs of it. And everyone was like, "Fuck off, no." It's like
Yeah,
you can't stop
exactly.
us.
You know what I
You
mean?
can't stop us from doing this. It's like it's completely unenforceable.
Yeah.
And again, they're basically taking again. It comes down to your property. They are saying we own the rights to do what we want with your property, which is where the Stop Killing Games movement comes in because we're trying to get a definition of saying, well, we're not renting the game from you. We're outright buying the game. They're trying to. They're trying. The companies are trying to say, oh well, you're only buying the license to play the game. It's like no. The argument is we've actually bought the game. We even if it's just a digital version, we've bought the right to the game, so we should be able to do it. And so it's easy to do for a company when it comes to digital because they obviously have access to the servers and they can cut you off. Although the purpose of the movement is to stop them from doing that. But when it comes to physical copies of a thing, they'd have to trespass on your property to be able to steal your physical copy. So there's much more laws there in the way of stopping companies from getting rid of a physical copy. So there are securities with doing that. We're trying to get that with a more digital in a more digital aspect now because that's a much more new concept than physical media. So
Yeah.
we need to make the law catch up with that. Um, but again, it comes down to censorship. You can't. I mean, can you can't go in and burn a new copy of a film, like a censored copy, onto someone's disc, because it's already had the information burned onto it and locked on. So you can't censor someone's thing as well. So again, there's a cultural aspect going into the general theme of the podcast. It's like you can't. It comes down to preservation over convenience. And going back to what we were saying before, where do you draw the line for it? So I think there's room for both, but we need to make sure there are cultural lines put in place to say, well, you can't just rewrite you can't rewrite films and change scenes just because you don't sue them. I mean, I remember like an infamous one was Home Alone 2 had the Trump cameo cut out of it, because a lot of people don't like Trump, and it's like, no, keep it in there. You know, you can't change it just because you don't like someone who's become a major political figure. You can't do that. It's like you're changing a thing. You're changing the artistic integrity of a thing just because you don't like it or for political reasons. Again, it comes down to the message. You can't do that with a physical copy of Home Alone 2, but you can with digital copies and TV reruns. And we need to make it. We need to make the companies think twice about doing that to digital copies. It's like, no, this is how it came out originally. It should be preserved in that way, regardless of whether you like it or not. Because, for example, I can imagine a lot of people don't like the Passion of the Christ. A lot of religious people, they were saying it, like, I remember a lot of the arguments, like, it glorifies the the violent part of the crucifixion, and it turned into torture porn. I mean, that's fair enough, but at the end of the day, you just don't watch it. But you can't go around and say people can't watch it. Other people can't watch it if they're interested. So it's like, again, where do you draw the line? I'm personally at the point of, if you don't like it, don't watch it, but you can't stop other people from watching it.
Yeah, I think I'm along the same lines as that. You know what I mean? Like, everybody should have the freedom to see what, within reason, within morals, obviously, see what they
Yeah.
want. And as
I
long
mean,
as
here's
it's
the
not
thing: you're
hurting
well within.
anybody,
Yeah,
that's
you're well
fine.
within your rights to. You're well within your rights to boycott it as well. So if
Yeah.
I remember hearing about a lot of like Christians boycotting the movie theaters. I mean, I don't think it had much of an effect, but it's well within their right to do that. I mean, if you want to display your displeasure with something, by all means do it. And as far as I can tell, they weren't actually physically stopping people from going in to watch the films. They were just, doing doing lines outside the film theaters and just saying, yeah, holding up signs saying this is bad. We don't want this. We think it's bad, and that's fine. Yeah, I mean, you can. I mean, you can even bring up conversations with that. I mean, I'm sure a
But
lot of
then
people were talking about the film because of it.
it brings us back to an interesting thing: is what is culturally acceptable at that point, because obviously every culture has different morals, different standards. And it's to what we were saying earlier: if you let everything through and let the person have the choice of what they watch, then when does a line get drawn? You know what I mean? Where does that line get drawn? Because obviously, there what was said earlier is there has to be a hierarchy, and I completely agree with that, because if you don't have a hierarchy, things are going to get out of control.
Well,
But
there are. I mean, you're not going to get a hard and fast rule because everyone's different. Obviously,
yeah,
I
of
mean,
course.
like we were saying at the start, it's like a country is not going to have a single cultural line. There's got to be cultural divides within a country. So, like in England, the north and the south are quite different. So the south might like certain films that come out, but the north find it really boring or insulting. But then you get the other way around. You might, the north like a film and the south don't. So I think get it down to as close as personal choice as you can would be the best way to do it. With some exceptions, because obviously, no, you're gonna have something which is outright illegal, like child porn. I don't think we should start having like mainstream child porn films come out there, because I remember like you had that film Cuties that came out, that Netflix put out a few
Oh
years
dear.
ago,
Yeah, I
and that
remember that.
came.
That was
I
horrible.
I I think that it straddled the line between being, between being not being and being child porn. I personally think it was quite disgusting, and it's like
Yeah. But
something
then
like that. I
there's
think
mothers.
something like that, because it is child exploitation. I think you can
Yeah,
make an argument for actually banning it. Um,
there's mothers out there that normalise that behaviour, like putting their children up to be models,
Well,
but not
there
thinking
were
that
apparently
there's
there was
anything wrong with it.
apparently well, there were apparently hundreds and maybe even thousands of parents who auditioned their kids for those roles as well. So, but something like that, that's an actual a legal issue enforced by culture, because it's like
Yeah,
people don't like child porn and pedophiles. Um, there's other things as well, like snuff films. You're not, you're breaking the law by doing that, because you're murdering somebody. So there's already legal remedies for that kind of stuff anyway. Um, One thing that culture and art does, though, it is there to sometimes push boundaries as well. So again, it's got to come down to the line of, does the person want to engage with it or not themselves? As long as it's not doing something that's blatantly illegal, um, I think it's fine. I think Cuties, as a specific example, kind of straddles a very, very, very tight line there, because it's like it's kind of pushing boundaries, but it's also, is it actually legal? But yeah, it's like, given the going back to what we were saying before, though, with like the French cultural mores, they are a bit more permissive about this kind of thing. So I think a lot of the rest of the world might not like it, but
yeah.
in France, I think it might actually be legal. You know?
I mean, there's a difference between like child sexual abuse, right? That's in any circumstance, it's not right. Okay, down to down to the line, it's not right. But in terms of films, if they're portrayed as a model, not for sexual reasons, but for, I guess, I mean, it's a hard thing to define, because you we beautify, as humans, we beautify things, don't we? And it's about seeing beauty in art, whatever the art may be. When it comes to children, it's a very, very controversial thing, right? But
Well,
if
children are
there's no
children are sacred, aren't
yeah,
they?
exactly.
I mean,
So if
would
but
you say that, Dominic? Children are sacred.
Yeah.
if there's no
Yeah.
sexual intent behind that, then does it still make it morally right that they can be beautified in some way? As a question that I guess needs to be asked. And I
I
don't
think
think
it.
there's any right or wrong answer in this case, because it's going
I,
to come down to the individual who then wants to see that art at the end of the day. But
I
if
think it. I
it's
think
not sexual abuse, then absolutely, I guess people would say, well, what's the problem with it? But then if
I
it's
think it comes down to with this. It's a problem of definitions,
yeah,
because it's like, beautifying. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, you want to look good. You want to make yourself appeal to society, not necessarily in a sexual way. I mean,
yeah,
because you get a lot of like young girls who like just put on their mum's lipstick or something like that, and they go like, and this guy go like, oh, I look at me, I look so pretty. There's no sexual aspect to that. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
the mother might be doing it for, like, to make herself look attractive to men or something like that,
Yeah,
or a husband. Or whatever, but when the kids do it, they're just doing it to copy. So, um, I think in cases like that, it really depends on how it's being defined.
yeah,
If it's done with a sexual intent, done
mhm,
with a sexual purpose in mind,
yeah. That's
then
things
yeah,
wrong.
that's going to be bad,
Absolutely.
because you don't do that to
Yeah,
kids. But if it's like kids just learn how to put on makeup, because they want to look pretty, I I don't necessarily see a problem with that.
yeah,
Again, it's where you draw the line.
Yeah. I mean,
because
it's difficult because
you're gonna get some people who are gonna be perverts to drool over
yeah.
kids because they're putting on blush or something like that.
Yeah. For me
But
myself,
yeah,
I'm not going to go out my way to watch that kind of thing because it doesn't interest me at the end of the day, and that's it.
I think it's pretty
If
gross. Yeah.
there's no moral in terms of sexual exploitation, sexual assault, sexual abuse, then let art be art at the end of the day. But
Yeah,
when it
I think
becomes a matter of people actually getting abused for it, then that's when it draws the line and says, no, actually, this needs to be stopped. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Because,
me
but it's
personally,
all
I think
it comes
it's
down. Sorry, it comes back to the
no go.
accountability of that person as well who is watching that. What are they
Yeah,
watching it for? What are they getting out of it? If they are actually exclusively watching it to get sexual gratification from it, then no, that's
well,
wrong.
that's fucked up.
Yeah, that's fucked up. Exactly. So
Yeah,
that's the case there, you know what I mean? And people should rightfully so correct their thought path and really seek help for that kind of behaviour. But if it's been
yeah.
watched in terms of art, if it's been watched to, get inspiration for different things, then fair enough, let it be. But again,
Well,
it's a hard question to answer because at the end of the day,
it's weird, but yeah, I
everybody's
mean
gonna have
these
different
things are never
standards.
easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean it's a thing. I mean, like I said before, it's got to it's art can be used to push boundaries, but you've got to be careful with it because it's like, well, if you're pushing boundaries to say that murder's okay, it's like no, that's not going to
No,
work.
murder's
If you're
not okay.
pushing boundaries like you want to change people's perception about a thing in the world, I mean, a lot of art was done to help the like the civil rights movement. So to portray black people as more, not as subhuman like some people thought they were. So again, that was pushing boundaries, and I think that's an example of a good version of it. So people reconsider, tradition and some cultural norms. It can be used. It's one of those things. I mean, art is ultimately a tool. I think it can be used for good. It can be used for evil as well. Um, how would it be used to try and have people reconsider or just think about their regular thought patterns and how they see the world? I think that's overall a good thing, even if a person ultimately doesn't change their mind about anything. The fact that they've considered it is a
Yeah.
good thing, and something else might get them to reconsider something else. I mean, because it can be used because you can use it to reaffirm your belief in something. Like, actually, I still think I'm right, and this has proven it. But then someone else could look at a different thing and go, "Oh well, this thing has actually made me realize I'm wrong about a certain topic." And yeah, I need to rethink how I approach things now.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, it can be done in that way, and it's good for doing that, but it also can't be used as an excuse to just for bad behavior.
yeah,
I think Hughes is just child exploitation,
yeah,
and it was rightfully lambasted by a lot of people. And I think some people are just doing it. Oh, well, we're trying to uh, push boundaries and break cultural norms. And I'm like, really, you're just doing it because like you get our kids or something,
yeah. I think that also the thing to remember is the people who want to get that content will get that content regardless anyway. You know
Unfortunately,
what I
there's
mean?
a
And
market
that's
for it.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's a black market for it. It's rife. It's becoming more rife as the world becomes a lot more online, and people are just generally creating that content because it is a market now and it's a money spinner. And it's dreadful to say that kind of thing generates money, but that is the case. You've got these crime gangs now that will actually actively involve themselves in that industry because they're getting money from it, which is horrible.
Like I said,
It's
there's a market,
absolutely horrible.
unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's one of those things. If people want to get that content and seek out that content, they'll get that content at the end of the day, regardless if it is a controversial film or if it is actual
Well, with that said,
sexual abuse. You know.
we should not make it easy on them. That kind of
Yeah.
thing should be because, like I say, it's illegal. It should be stamped out whenever it's found. So
Yeah.
even if they do scatter like cockroaches, they shouldn't be allowed to get away with it.
Yeah, absolutely. And the punishment should be, severe for that kind of crime at the end of the day. For any kind of crime, in my opinion, really, punishment should be severe. But there's also a case of, you need to rehabilitate people as well. In my opinion,
I think it
it's a
depends on the.
hard.
I think it depends on the crime and what goes into it. Because I mean, you do get mitigating circumstances. And like we were saying at the end of Seven, when Brad Pitt kills Kevin Spacey, it's like, okay, he's committed a crime, but it's not like the same as like how he planned to do it. It's like, he was driven to his rage breaking point, and snapped and shot him. It's like that's going to be mitigating circumstances. He's still going to get punished for committing a crime.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it shouldn't always be severe. You do need to take into account other factors.
How would that be viewed, Dominic, in adult culture? Like if the person went out and committed a crime like murder, and
Like in
obviously,
Seven.
yeah.
Probably release him again. That's what happened nowadays.
I mean, do you
Well,
want
no,
to?
in actual proper Dutch culture, not
Yeah.
the modern slop that we've all been forced to do.
What would be
Because
the general
we've got the
consensus?
same problem over here with like like rapists getting released accidentally.
Yeah.
Because we've got some activist judges who are just like, oh no, we'll just let them all go. I was like, sort of. But yeah, actual proper Dutch culture though, not the not globalist slop.
I actually don't know. I wasn't born in proper Dutch culture.
Uh,
Like back in the day, like obviously, if you go all the way back, you would just get your head cut off. Problem solved, right?
Right.
yeah.
But that's like a few hundred
Definitely.
years ago.
Yeah.
But like the
Well, if we're
rehabilitation part, like it's definitely there. But like our prisons are not really empty, which we don't have guards. So this has been going on for a while, and there's so many people that should be in jail that are just walking free because that's what I've
yeah,
been raised in. Like I've heard stories, yeah, that there used to be a good system, but I don't know. Like I've read up
I mean,
about it,
like,
and I know they
we
agree, but
I mean, we've had it here. Like, if we did the Seven example, and we did it, and we had the Seven example, it would be he'd go to prison. He'd probably get some kind of lower sentence, because
Mitigating
of
factors. Yeah.
because of mitigating circumstances. Because it's like, I mean, he definitely loses. He wouldn't be allowed to be a police officer anymore.
Yeah.
But I mean, well, given that, but then he'd either get like a very light sentence, or he might get but he'd still get found guilty of murder, obviously. But the sentencing would be much more lenient than if he just planned. Like if Kevin Spacey was sent to prison, was sent to trial for it, then he'd get a much harsher, because he's clearly planned all of those murders. So
Yeah.
he'd get a much harsher sentence because he's got no excuse. Brad Pitt does have something of an excuse though, because of the circumstances surrounding it.
Yeah. Was it reactional or was it,
Yeah,
planned?
it's
When
closer
it
to
looks
crime
like.
of passion than cold-blooded murder.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Because with Kevin Spacey's ones are all cold-blooded.
Yeah,
And with Brad Pitt in mind, he specifically manipulated him to get him to that rage breaking point where his hope was that he'd snap, and shoot him, which is what happened. So there's clear mitigating circumstances. I mean, he's not in his. You can argue he's not in his right mind at that point.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things, I think, that like the classic movies, as I kind of said back at the start, I think that's why they had quality in them, is because they actually let you as a viewer kind of decide on what you would see as right and wrong in that
Hmm.
circumstance. But without making it, aye, this is definitely wrong or this is definitely right. It just kind of let you come to your own decision. And then the good thing about Seven, I guess, if we're using that as an example, is you never ever seen a trial afterwards. You never seen like what happened to Brad Pitt, and the aftermath, of that. So again, it left it on you as the viewer's shoulders to decide what
it
was
was a
right and
good
what was
ending
wrong.
for that,
And
yeah.
it's kind of maybe like Fight Club as well. That kind of did the same thing, where it kind of left it on you as the viewer's shoulders what was right and what was wrong in that circumstance. Brad Pitt, again, as an example, in that movie, went through his own kind of moral quandrum, and it was himself who was kind of the
Well,
antagonist as
you got that
well.
backwards. It was Ed Norton. Brad Pitt was Tyler Durden, and that he was definitely the bad guy in that one.
Yeah, no, he was a bad guy, but what I mean is, he was
No, he didn't have
he
his own
was
moral quandary in
he
that.
was the dichotomy. He was the dichotomy of
Yeah,
Ed Norman, wasn't he?
he was the narrator's kind of dark side, like his
Yeah,
repressed side.
yeah. So again, it kind of left it up to you as the viewer to kind of see, well, what was right and what was wrong in that circumstance. He was
Well,
obviously
no,
going through.
in that one, no, in that one, he's clearly, he's clearly wrong in that because I mean, he
Mm,
becomes a terrorist, right? Tyler Durden's a terrorist. There's no ambiguity there. It's what comes afterwards, which is the ambiguity. We don't
yeah,
see anything happen. What happens to Ed Norton's character? What happens to what was her name, Martha or something? Helena Bonham Carter's character. What happens there? Do they get together because they were holding hands at the end? Is anything going to come of that? Is Ed Norton going to be arrested because of what's happened? Because it's like
mm,
he might have he might have got people to infiltrate a lot of law enforcement, but does he have complete control over? So he's got to get away with it. There's a lot of unanswered questions there, but there's less ambiguity about good and evil in that.
I guess as well, like maybe using The Shining as an example as well, like Jack Nicholson's character,
I've actually
and
not
how he
seen that, you know.
flipped. Well, he flipped, during the movie. He was like a kind of normal family guy, and then he flipped psychological. You know what I mean? To become a
There's only 3 scenes I've seen from The Shining, which are the most famous ones. So it's where he's typing all work and no play. The one with the
bedroom.
twins in the hall, the ones
Yeah,
with the twin in the hallway and the here's Johnny scene as well.
yeah,
They're
yeah,
the only bits I've seen. I've not seen anything else
yeah.
when it comes to The Shining. I should though. I really should.
But I think overall, movies that can do that very well, and Stanley Kubrick was brilliant for that. You know what I mean? He could definitely make you think as a viewer, like, what would you do in that circumstance, kind of thing. You know what I
Also
mean?
notorious for being very difficult to work with though.
Right. Okay. There seems to be a theme there, doesn't there? Seems to be a theme. um.
Well, you can say he's very committed to his vision.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean,
In terms of
you know the scene from Clockwork Orange where Malcolm McDowell's being forced to watch stuff and he's getting the eye drops put in. Apparently, that was all real. So all the
really.
screams of pain Malcolm McDowell's doing is because Stanley Kubrick forced
Oh
him to do it,
wow.
and he had no
Oh.
idea that was going to happen until it happened.
Yeah. Well, there was that. I don't know. It's not Stanley Kubrick movie, but there was also that scene in Birds where it was all real birds actually injuring people, and that's
What?
why it looks so real. Yeah.
I don't know. I've never heard. I don't know about that one to be honest. Could
Yeah.
they actually do that? Would that be illegal? Because you're not allowed to
At
do
that
stuff which.
time, but then there was also, what was the famous one where the helicopter crashed and it killed two kids and a person that decapitated them. I think was it Apocalypse Now, maybe? I don't know. Can't remember the
I've not
movie.
watched it.
I've watched
Um,
it.
I can't remember the exact movie it was, but anyway, two kids get decapitated because of it, and but it was because the stunt was like more or less real at that point. You know what I mean? Like they wanted to actually do a real kind of stunt, so some people get obviously killed because of that.
I don't. Well, I don't think you can do a film where someone you're literally intending to get someone killed.
Yeah,
You do have ones where I mean you had ones like what was it like in The Crow where what's his name the main guy
yeah, he gets shot.
accidentally shot.
Yeah,
Yeah, he accidentally shot himself. There's some inherent risk when it comes to stunts, so people can get injured and killed.
hmm,
But I mean that's a matter of course of like, oh well, you're not doing it with the intent of doing that. It's just an unfortunate accident.
yeah,
But if you're doing it with the intent of someone getting killed, like you're really beheading kids, well, you're just
yeah.
making a snuff film at that point. So yeah,
It wasn't intentful. The way it happened was an accident, but they wanted to make the stunt look so real that actually it went, severely wrong, and that killed children.
that is more being irresponsible
Yeah,
than anything else.
yeah,
It's like there's one thing being dedicated to your art, but there's another thing where actively making things dangerous because you want a specific vision. You've when it comes to that, I think you probably at the very least get done for criminal negligence.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Dominic, from a philosophical point of view, what do you think about it?
In what sense?
Just from a whole philosophy side of things, like art being, painting a direction and things like that for
Well,
Just
it's
generally what
civilization.
more
we've been talking
the
about. You mean?
yeah, like it's more the paradox of tolerance. Like
Yeah,
you give them an inch to take a mile.
yeah,
Like the
Yeah.
biggest issue, especially when it comes to the Khaldunian cycle from Ibn Khaldun, like the more you normalize, the more corrupt your society becomes. The more corrupt your society becomes, the more it's going to lead to collapse. Like you get invaded or you get destroyed from within. And that's what we're seeing in our current society. We normalize so much corruptive behavior that we're now being destroyed from within by our own people who are using moral authority as a shield in order to preach things that just damage the country even more.
That's why I hate like it's why I really dislike a lot of the activists now, because it's like they always go like, oh, well, you hate gay people, you're anti-LGBT or something like that. It's like, well, I actually I don't, it's not that I dislike LGBT people. I dislike the activists who are using, because my best friend is a lesbian, and I hate the fact that she is being used as a cudgel and shield to try and enforce their version of communism. And when it comes down to it, as soon as she's her or gay people in general are no longer useful, they're gonna be left holding the bag and have to deal with all the consequences, because a lot of people don't differentiate the activists from the actual people who just want to get on with their lives. And so they ruin people's lives in a direct and indirect manner, because they're trying to change culture to make it worse for everyone in general,
But
even
aren't you
though some of them
saying two
probably wouldn't.
things this episode then? Because on one side you're saying this, but on the other side you were saying that people should be taking accountability. So that means that your best friend should be up on the streets trying to stop these people, right?
She should, yeah, but I wasn't talking about that specifically.
Well, okay.
I mean, because there are groups that you've got groups like gays against groomers or trans against groomers, because they're against people trying to use them to push, MAP stuff, MAP, that kind of, like the pedophiles trying to trying to backdoor their way into using terminology to get away with what they're doing. And
Yep.
yeah, I think I think for her, she puts her head in the sand, unfortunately, which makes it worse. She should be doing something, but she doesn't. But it's one of those things, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it
Yeah,
drink.
yeah.
I've brought it up in many conversations before, and she'll engage to a point, but I don't think she'll do anything with it, which is unfortunate. I can't force her to do anything though.
But the
I mean,
problem is,
I wouldn't force her to do it anyway.
like we're getting into Rene Girard's mimic theory here, and what we've seen in history is that a scapegoat will be made, and right now the LGBT has made themselves the most perfect scapegoat of all time. Like
Yeah,
they are being looked at, and there's a lot of people that are trying. Like we're trying to draw a line because that's kind of like the theme of the episode. Like,
I
where do you draw the line? But now it's
yeah.
more like, okay, you're just going to not only ignore us, you're going to accuse us of bigotry, racism, etc., etc. We're just going to go keep further down the right, and there's going to be a point where there's too many people on that side where you're just royally fucked.
Yeah, it's going to get to that point. And like I say, it's really sad, because there are people in the the non-activists in there who just want to live their lives and get on with things, and they
yeah,
don't want to bother anybody,
yeah,
and they are going to be the ones who end up suffering a lot, because the activists are basically using them as a cudgel and a shield to get away with bad behavior.
yeah,
And when it comes to large groups, nuance goes out of the window. I reckon not a lot of people know about the likes of gays against groomers or trans against groomers, and they just see them all as being part of it, and bringing
Yeah,
problems to
it's one
society.
giant
Uh,
umbrella.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate. I mean, I'm careful to try and make sure I differentiate between the two, which is why I say I dislike the activists
Yeah,
specifically.
I would always say it comes down to the individual in that circumstance. Like you have to separate the individual from the group because there's always
You do
going to
have to,
be
yeah, you do
one
have to police it.
oddball.
Yeah,
There's always going to be one oddball in every group that you get. You know, even whatever is defined as normal, even
there's
that there's always going to be oddballs.
there's
So
one thing there's one thing I found out fairly recently though, which is very interesting. Apparently, communists were trying to infiltrate the LGBT uh, community right from the start. You know when the civil rights movement was in the swing. There's pictures, there's old photographs of rallies for civil rights, and there's a bunch of communist signs in there as well. So it looks like some communists at the time realized there was some potential with this and got in there early. So it looks like it was maybe not destined, but
yeah,
it had this kind of thing going at it from the start. So
it's
it's not a recent thing.
it's funny now because in films you're seeing always on screen, like for me, in my opinion, you're always seeing some kind of gay character or some kind of controversial figure
An
making.
over representation of it, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, being an antagonist or protagonist or whatever, what I mean, the hero in some
There's
sort or the villain. And even if they're not the villain, there's always a side character where it's like, oh, my gay friend or whatever, you know what I mean? And it's obviously sometimes in movies now it's seen as a justification to try and be diverse with the people that they're
yeah.
putting on the stage. But
There's
I
a
think
thing
there
I
has to
saw.
be a line between storytelling and where you're bringing in diversity as well.
Yeah, there's a thing I saw recently. There's a show that's come out recently, and it's set in uh way in the past. I can't remember. I'll try and find what it's called, but I can't remember what it is right now. But it showed an establishing shot of the city, and this is like Victorian era, and it was like a lot of black people, like a black couple going around. There was someone who was disabled just walking around, and there's a bunch of Asian people walking around, and there's like one white person in there. It's like that is not representative of that time period.
Of that
It's
time
like
period. Yeah,
it's like yeah, black, and these look like people in like middle class or high society. So it's like black people weren't treated equally at that point. They would have been servants or slaves at that point, not dressed in anything except like lower class stuff. There
yeah,
weren't many Asian people around at that time, and they definitely weren't kind of socialite. Someone who's disabled wouldn't be able to walk around with a cane or stuff like that very much. They'd usually be left as a drag to society and let it die out. And
yeah,
there'd be many more white people. So if you're trying to do it as historically accurate, again going to Cleopatra or something like that, you've got to represent it properly. But this is just showing, yeah, this is our funny thing. Go back to stereotyping, but this is our Californian worldview. When we say California, but you really mean like liberal Hollywood worldview, and it's
Well,
like
it's the Californian fever, no? That's kind of what they call it, the Californian fever.
I've not heard it called Californian fever, but I've heard it called like the California worldview. I mean, same thing. It's like what they did. Like my favorite book series, Wheel of Time. They did that with the Amazon TV series. They diversified everything, and it's like they turned the Two Rivers, which is an isolated community in a place that doesn't even know it's part of a larger kingdom because they're so isolated. So very homogenous and conservative at the start of the books. It looks like it looks like modern day California because there's a lot of mixed race people in there. And one of the points is Rand, the main character, is seen as unusual because he's got red hair when everyone has got brown hair and dark eyes over there. And it turns out to be a plot point. But then because everyone looks very similar. But in the show, they all look very diverse. It's like that really ruins it. Plus, it might sound a bit weird, but I think locations can have character development as well. Because
oh yeah,
again, in the Wheel of Time, as the series goes on, a lot of refugees come in because they're fleeing war from elsewhere on the continent, and they end up making a dangerous crossing across the mountains, which normally no one can cross. But these people are so desperate they make the attempt. So
yeah,
when you keep going back to the Two Rivers every now and again,
Well, look at
see things.
films like
It
sorry.
changes. So you get like a new different kind of like houses being built. They usually don't like traditional thatch ones.
Yeah.
Because they've got a local thatcher. You start to see some houses now being built with brick and slate roofs instead.
Yeah.
Different different professions are coming in. Like you get some like uh, uh, weavers coming in and dressmakers from different countries who are now bringing new things. So the place changes slowly over the course of the series, but that's been robbed of it as well because everyone's automatically already diverse. So
Yeah. If you
you
look at films
you
like
can't bring in more diversity.
if you look at films like The Shawshank Redemption, Green Mile, Shutter Island, things like that, the locations are all characters within themselves.
Funny thing with the funny thing with the Shawshank Redemption, Morgan Freeman's character was originally white, red.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, but that one that
Was that in the
was
book?
race swap.
Stephen King? Wasn't
Yeah,
it? Was that a
he was
Stephen
white.
King book?
He was Irish, and he was called red because he had typically red hair as an Irishman. Now
Wow.
the thing is that was a race swap that wasn't done for malicious purposes though. It was just Morgan Freeman just did such a good audition. They're like, yeah, you have to play this role, and they
Yeah.
just race swapped it. There are examples of doing race swapping where it's not done maliciously. The problem was with all the modern versions of it, it's done for malicious reasons.
Yeah.
That's where people have the problem.
You can't deny, but Morgan Freeman is always seen as that kind of fatherly figure, even like in films like Bruce Almighty, he portrays God because he is
Well,
known
the
as that.
ultimate father figure, God,
Yeah,
isn't
yeah,
it?
definitely,
Yeah.
definitely. So he has that typecast of role where he is kind of seen as a mentor, a kind of person who you would
But
look
yeah, but
towards.
he is a good actor. So
Yeah,
they wanted him for the part, and so they race swapped Red into a black man, and it worked. I mean, like I say, it
yeah,
wasn't done for malicious reasons, and Morgan Freeman actually makes the role his own, so he does a really good job with it,
and that's the
and
thing. See if
no
it's done
one
for
plays a problem.
See if
What?
it's done for storytelling reasons. If it's a good actor that can do that role well, then I have no problem with it. But see if
Well,
it's done
it can be done.
for
It could be done for practical reasons as well. There was a
yeah,
film. I can't remember what the name of the film is, but there was one. It was set in ancient Egypt, and all of it had Christian Bale in it, and it had most of the Egyptian actors were white, and that was just mostly because they couldn't get enough. They couldn't get enough actors like Egyptian-looking actors from the region that could speak English, or they just couldn't get enough for to come down to the thing. So a lot of the extras were just white, and it wasn't done for malicious reasons. It was purely a practical concern. If I could just remember there's so many of these where it's like I know the thing, but I can't remember the name of it. I've got to start writing these down.
yeah, definitely. But I mean, yeah, talked a lot about that and diversity in films and storytelling. There's definitely a line that needs to be drawn somewhere, kind of thing. You know what I mean? Effective storytelling and then diversity. Because I think if you have too much diversity in movies, it's going to ruin it. And I mean, that's my opinion. But
I
there we
wouldn't
go.
say too much. I just say if it's forced, it's being done in a malicious way
Yeah,
to insult and deride other people's culture
yeah,
because these people see it as worse. Um, and it's not done for any practical or
yeah.
artistic concerns.
Yeah, that's
You
what I mean.
can
So if
you,
it's not done for any kind of practical reason other than just to give
or
an
artistic.
actor a role, yeah, exactly. If it's just to give the actor a role for the sake of giving the actor a role, just to diversify your cast, so to speak, then I think that's when the kind of lines to go. Well, okay, really, did you need that there? Is it going to add anything to the story? For me anyway, that's my general opinion on it. But could be wrong.
No, I mean it's just how you look at things. I don't think there's a wrong way of doing it.
Yeah, definitely. But is there any closing thoughts that you guys wanted to come up with before we kind of finish off?
I mean, I think we've gone over everything. And we've got
Yeah.
some big tangents.
Yeah, definitely. We seem to do that, but and it's good because it kind of gets the audience thinking, and obviously welcome the comments if there is any, as to the thoughts of what
You know what?
people
Actually, I've
actually
never
think.
looked at any. Have we actually had any? I've never looked at. Do we actually have any comments?
No.
Today, no.
Yeah,
But
so it'd be funny if we did. You know what? If someone is watching and they just put a comment and just say like,
hello.
just to prove me wrong, that'll be funny.
Yeah, definitely. But we welcome it anyway if there is any comments or any thoughts on it. So yeah. But thank you very much for your time again, guys. It's been a great episode, I feel. And thanks for your time.
In a bit.